I was shot in a bank robbery in 1990. Had a lot of these symptoms early on, and then I went back to work, and for about 10 years after, 10 or 12 years after that, everything seemed to have subsided. A lot of the anxiety, a lot of the nightmares, and in 2004, I don't know why. There wasn't any specific trigger. Nobody put a gun in my face. Maybe there was a combination of overwhelming stressors, and all of the symptoms of my trauma came back. The nightmares, the anxiety, the panic attacks, to the point where you're just falling down on the floor. Flashbacks of a guy in a room pointing a gun at you and firing it while I was either at work, in a meeting, at dinner time with the family, and me jumping under the table. These things are unacceptable. And I spent the next nearly 3 months in the hospital doing, having surgery after surgery after surgery, and there was a lot of pain there. So that and things went wrong, and I died again in the hospital. I was in the hospital one day, and I don't know if you believe in angels, but I do, because a guy walks in my room. I'm in the ICU. I'm dying. I was 77 days dying. Could have died any one of those days. And I'm on all kinds of machines, and I'm weak. And a guy walks in my room, and he's dressed, in jeans, and he's a young guy, and he walks in my room. He's looking at me. He's just shaking his head like this. And I'm just thinking, what now? Another surgery? What's going on? Sepsis, blood infection? What do I have to fight today? Right? Didn't I fight enough? So he's shaking his head. I don't know what he's going to say to me. But he's not dressed like a doctor or a nurse. He's just like, like you, just in regular clothes. And he comes up to the right side of my bed. He looks at me, and he looks at me in my eyes like he knew exactly who I was, but I'd never seen him before. He knew me like I was his best friend. And he looked at me with all this love in his eyes. And there are these moments in your life when you know that something amazing is happening. And that was one of these moments that I knew something amazing was happening. And he looked at me, and he said, "You're not supposed to be here. There's a reason why you were chosen. Find out what it is." And he looks at me until I'm like, okay. I didn't really understand what he was saying, but okay. Powerful words, right? Who the heck are you? What are you talking about? Turns around, walks out, turns right. I call the nurse. Who's this guy with long hair, right? This young kid with long hair. And she's, I don't know, we've never seen him in the hospital. It's definitely not in the ICU. Do you want me to call security? I'm like, no, I don't think he was a threat. I just want to know who he was. Yeah. So I thought for many years, he wasn't, who walks into a dying man's room? If he was from down the hall, he would be like, hey, I'm visiting my friend Bill, and and I saw you, and I just wanted to introduce myself. No, there was no introduce myself. There was no icebreaker. There was no, hey, how you doing? There was no good morning, good afternoon. There was none of that. There was no my name is. Just the message, and that's it. So I wouldn't forget what it was. So there was nothing to confuse that it was about something else. I have never forgotten what that was. Wow. That was an angel incarnate. Believe it? Don't believe it? That's okay, because eventually you will believe it. When your time comes, you'll get it. But this stuff is real. It's as real as this table. It's as real as you. And it exists all around us. And the reason I can take this is because I know there is a God. And I know that when I need to get that strength. When I was in heaven, Mary said, sending you back, and you've got something to do, and all you need to know is I will be right next to you for the rest of your life. All you need to do is just reach out if you need me. I'm going to live today. He was like, maybe you also need psychological therapy. I don't know what you're talking about. He was like, just lay back. Don't worry about it. But that's the way I felt. Even when the priest came to me to give me last rites, and he was like, I bless you in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I forgive you all your sins, past and present. Is there anything you'd like to say? And I said, hey, Father, an angel told me that I'm going to live, so don't worry. And he was like, you're telling me not to worry?
Wow.
I died when I was shot. I know I died because my body's laying there, and my spirit came out of my body. And I could see Lisa and I could see Rosaline, both also shot. Lisa's screaming, Rosaline's trying to get out of the bank, and I'm still alive. And I could see my dead body there, and I still feel alive, and I can see and smell and hear all this stuff. And you need to know that that death thing is an illusion. Because, you know, my belief, my faith in God, I was still alive. And a woman appeared to me, called herself a Lady of Mercy, so Mother Mary. She put her hand on my shoulder and she said to me, don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. And I wasn't. I knew exactly what it was, and I wasn't afraid, and I wasn't in pain. And it's like we stepped through a doorway, and we weren't there in the bank anymore. We were in this other unbelievable place. And it was heaven, and it was beautiful, but more than what it looked like is what it felt like. It was complete peace and perfect love. So no pain, no anxiety, no phone calls, no appointments, no stress, no anger, no guilt, all that just, it's not like, it's just that it doesn't exist there, doesn't exist. It's like the feeling of a warm hug from your mother, and the light shining and the warmth on your face, and it was just perfect. It's the place that when you go to, you never want to leave. She told me that I had to go back and then I had to do something. Before I did, she gave me a really cool gift that took me more than 20 years even to learn what it was and how to use it. And I had another chance to die. I had an actual chance to die. 25 years ago, when I was also in the hospital room. I had congestive heart failure. I died again. And I kept saying, didn't I die enough? Am I going through enough pain? All right, you sent me back from heaven. I get it. There's this beautiful thing I'm supposed to do. And it's a beautiful world, and I have all this faith. So why do I have to keep going through pain and more pain and more pain and more surgeries and more infections and then sepsis in your blood? Hey, Rob, you're going to die again. We're going to give you this crazy, we have to give you all these other treatments and just cut you open again. There's sutures and staples everywhere. I just felt like a monster. Just wanted to die, and one day I was so weak in my bed. It was the afternoon, and it was a window, and the light is coming in, and I was just so weak and so tired of it all. I was so weak, and I was so tired that I left. There was nothing left in my emotional tank, in my physical tank. And I just was in so much pain, I started to pray, I started to scream, and I said, God, you gotta just let me go. You gotta do something, you gotta get rid of my pain right now, because I can't take another minute of it. In that instance, that only time, a voice like mine, like yours, a voice came in my room. I was awake, not a vision, and physical sound in those four walls, but I was the only heartbeat in the room. He said, if you want your pains to stop, all you have to do is let go of your will to live, and you will come home. And I knew what home was. God said, the choice is yours. I wanted revenge, right? Okay? I wanted the visceral revenge of getting this guy. The first chapter of my book was the day that I thought I found him in Bayside. And it's about what I was planning on doing to him. Because I thought it was for sure him. And I went in and talked to this guy and had this plan. Realized in the end that it wasn't him, and then realized when I walked out how horribly I would have changed my life if I did what I was planning on doing. And that was part of my providence. That was part of my journey, to meet that guy. To go through that emotional experience of actually in my head thinking of what I would actually do when I had the moment to do something. And I realized how it would have killed me. And it just would have ended up in complete disaster. My disaster. Right. And that I had to forgive this guy. And the day that I did, not long after that, was the day that changed my world. And I got my revenge. Yeah. I got my revenge. The revenge is, you don't want him to hurt you anymore. And he can never hurt me anymore because I forgave him. I forgave him. Now he can't touch me anymore. I can take off my bulletproof vest. He can't hurt me anymore. And now I can let the love in from everybody else. Have to get rid of the anger and the guilt. And I realized that I was becoming the man who did this to me. And if you don't get rid of your anger, you will become in some way, shape, or form the thing that did that to you. And we transmit our cancer to the people around us, especially the ones we love, because those are the people we have most contact with. Our kids, who may grow up with anger, and then they transmit it to their family, that anger. And you got to stop the chain. You got to break the cycle, Bruce. But how? How the heck do you do this? And I was sent to the most unusual places to meet people who I learned who the guy was who shot me. I don't know who he is, but I learned what he was. And I learned what I could become. And I realized that unless something changed, then nothing would change. And I realized at one point that I had to forgive him. That was the last thing I wanted to do. I didn't want to forgive him. I liked hating him. Why would I forgive him? But unless I did, I would never get rid of my anger. How do you forgive this guy? And the way I learned how to forgive him was to learn what he was. So I met these people who taught me who he was, what he was. And see, I knew maybe he was abusing alcohol, maybe he was abusing drugs, but I definitely knew that he was so angry beyond his own means to control it that he had no other option than to go out and hurt other people. But if you could put an image in your head of who this guy is, who the people who hurt you are, and then maybe you can appreciate the pain that they're in, it makes it easier then to understand who they are and then to say, I get it. You were hurt. You were hurting people you could never forgive. That's what I need to do. And the day I forgave the guy, the olive-skinned man, because I don't have a name for him, that's what I call him. It was the day that changed my life. Changed my world. Yeah, anger is huge for us. A lot of it is about anger, and a lot of it is also about guilt. Yes. So anger, yeah, I've exploded in anger. I've exploded in anger at my children when they were young, my fault, at my wife, at my friends, at my family, always tried to not to do it at work because you try to.
That hurts. It hurts everything.
It hurts. So I would hold that in.
How are your flashbacks? Have you had a lot?
I continue to have flashbacks, and we retreat into those places so that we don't embarrass ourselves when we have flashbacks. So I spend a lot of time at home. And you got to get rid of that anger, because we think that anger is what? So when you're angry, how do you feel? Like, you can't hurt me.
No.
I'm angry. Try to hurt me. I won't let you. So really it's just an emotional barrier. We feel like it protects us. Like what? Like a Kevlar vest, like a bubble that nobody can get in, but that's just it. Nobody can get in. The bad can't get in, but the good can't get in either. So you can't let the love in from your family, and you just you just push everybody away because you're angry. Because you just don't want to be hurt anymore. Because you're hurting your nightmares. You're hurt during the day. You just hurt. You just want it to be over. So we love this anger. And I loved hating the guy who shot me. He was never caught, never seen, never captured, nothing. I don't know where he is. Could be dead or he could be alive. And I look for him wherever I go. I used to look for him because I wanted to pay him back for what he did. But the anger really, it's not a Kevlar jacket. It's not a bubble, and it doesn't protect me. I realized that was really the cancer. That and the guilt is the cancer. And you know what the cancer does. It just tears you apart. And in the end, it just kills you. Are we going to let the anger kill us? What are we going to do about it? How do you get rid of it? And writing this stuff all down. And I'm coming through this process about, we're not victims. We're survivors. There are a lot of things that help me cope, but it's really based on the symptom that I'm experiencing more that day. Some days coping means just laying in bed with my eyes closed or sitting on the couch, or because there's just so much sensory stuff coming at me. Everything is so loud, and you just don't want any sounds. The smallest sound is just too much to take. Sometimes it's just a night of nightmares. And there are a lot of misconceptions too about the nightmares. And people are like, well, you have anxiety, so you have nightmares. And psychologists say that that's the chicken, and then the nightmares is the egg. But I think that's wrong. I think the nightmares is the chicken, and then our daily anxiety is the egg. Okay, so nightmares for people who are suffering from trauma are, we're dying. We are literally fighting for our lives. There's a lot of blood, there's shooting, there's stabbing. It always ends in death, at least for me. For a normal person who experiences a normal sleep cycle, there's REM, rapid eye movement sleep, and everything is normal, and you process the things that you process. But when you've had trauma, the neurotransmitters in your brain are all off balance. It happens. Why does it happen? Look, there's so much that they don't know, but that's the way it is. There are certain things that happen in a normal sleep cycle for a normal person. There's what's called rematonia. So normally, when you sleep, your body goes into at some point during the sleep cycle, goes into a state of muscle paralysis. But that's normal, because that's so you don't act out in your dreams, so you don't fight and punch, so you don't hit somebody and hurt either yourself or someone else. When somebody suffers from trauma, Bruce, those neurotransmitters are off. So when we experience nightmares, we're doing that fighting, that punching and kicking. I've never hurt myself, but my wife has sometimes been on the receiving end of that, and that's unacceptable. When we're sleeping with nightmares, the nightmares in part are caused by a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is two things. It's not only a brain neurotransmitter, but it's also a hormone, like the hormone adrenaline. So when a normal person has a normal sleep cycle, the amounts of these neurotransmitters and hormones are decreased. So you have a nice, comfortable sleep cycle, and you process your good dreams. But we dream with norepinephrine. We dream with adrenaline. And so, adrenaline is that thing that either when you're excited or when you're scared, That's the adrenaline. That's that feeling you get. And you know that adrenaline is the thing that makes you remember. Remember the first time you rode a bike, your first kiss, your wedding, that dance, you know, those, or a blowout fight that you'll never forget. That's adrenaline. It imprints the memory in your brain, you never forget it. It's the same thing that it works the same way in nightmares. When you have those nightmares, they are so real. They are as real as we're sitting here today. And the stabbing is real, and the shooting is real. And you remember that, and you wake up, and I still feel where I was shot, where I was stabbed. I mean, you have that physical pain. There's nothing there, but you feel it. And the emotional loss of your own death or running from your life, that adrenaline in your dream, you remember that. That is so real. So now that now you're in a waking state. You're in a waking state. And it's like you're still experiencing this stuff because those emotions are so strongly imprinted. You just can't escape from that. For years, there was no relief for me for nightmares. I went through therapy and EMDR, which can be very helpful, and you know, psychiatrists feeding me all kinds of pills for anxiety and depression, and for, at least for nightmares, none of that stuff helped. You know, one of the important things is that you find a psychiatrist, a doctor, and this is real important. I'm not a drug guy. I don't believe in drugs as a rule, but you know, we're at war. Okay, we are at war. We are. This is a battle every single day, and you need tools. You need weapons. That's what it is. And I did find a drug, a pharmaceutical, which again, don't love the word, but I found a pharmaceutical and a great doctor who believes less is more. And, you know, 2 rules: nothing that's addictive, emotionally and physically, and nothing that's mind-altering to the point where it changes who you are in a negative way. These are the 2 rules of drugs that I have. And Dr. Katz is an awesome doc. So maybe 7 or 8 years ago, he said, Rob, you know, I was at a conference and there's this drug and it's supposed to help with nightmares. And I'm like, you know, so what do you think? Well, he explained it as an antihypertensive, so blood pressure medication. That's really old. It's an old drug. It's hardly ever used for blood pressure anymore because honestly, it wasn't very effective for doing that. But it has this side effect. So again, at night, the androgenic system in our brain is elevated. And you need something, you need an alpha-1, I think it's an alpha-1 blocker, to stop the brain's production of norepinephrine, of adrenaline. And if you can do that, you can at least decrease the number and intensity of the nightmares.
Wow.
So he says this, and I say, what's the downside? First of all, what's the downside? You know, you see these drug commercials, and then they give you the fine print, and they go on, you know, stroke, heart attack, death, so I'm like, you know, any of that? And he was like, well, no, it's a blood pressure medicine, so you may feel a little dizzy when you take it. If you get out of bed quickly, you may lose, your blood pressure may drop, you may feel faint, so be careful of that. And, you know, I take it at night. I have talked to some people who take this drug or have taken it during the day, and they said during the day and it helps them at night. But I don't see how that would work, at least for me, because and I have tried to take it to see what happens. It just ruins you. Lowers my blood pressure. Take it during the day, and then try to do anything. You get up and you just low blood pressure feeling isn't good. You feel that
like a pressure almost. You're not able to function.
Well, yeah, you get faint. You lose your blood pressure. So at night, it's fine because mostly I'm in bed. And so how's that worked? Well, it's again, like I said, it's a weapon, and you need a weapon. I mean, you need a sword against an enemy that attacks you constantly at night. And for me, it's put a huge dent in the number and frequency and intensity of my dreams. Still have them, still is a problem, still act out, still fight, punch. My wife breaks me up, but she puts her arm's length and bro. So that's been a big help.
Are you easily startled by loud noises, someone tapping your shoulder quickly, or?
All the time. That never goes away. But everything, for me, everything is, even though I hear that, everything is magnified. All our sensors, so we have hypervigilance, right? An exaggerated state of feeling like there's this, our threat level is very high. And we are looking everywhere for the next guy who's going to hurt us. In rooms, in places, crowded places. That's one thing. So you're elevated, sensory. For me, my hearing is just hyper sensitive. Any little thing, especially if it's quiet, I mean, you drop a fork on the floor, it sounds like a gunshot, and I jump. I'm home alone, and the doorbell rings, boom, the phone rings, and I just hit the floor or scream or do something ridiculous. And somebody comes around a corner and I'm not expecting it. Well, there's either put your hand up, there's either I have hit people. Sorry about that. Sometimes it's just something else. I just am terrified. Terrified. And I'm under the table. Now, when kids were little, I've got 3 beautiful, wonderful kids. Adam will be 18 this year, Jessica's 16, and Stephen's 13. And so, but when they were little, what do kids love more than anything on the planet? Balloons. Dad, blow up a balloon. Oh my God, now, not only when the balloon pops, and the balloon will pop, it is a gunshot. That's what it is. Screaming, and then it remains. Your heart rate goes up, anxiety level goes up, it sometimes brings back flashbacks, and I am just hiding someplace, quiet and dark until it all goes away. And now I gotta blow the balloon up, because then you blow the balloon up, don't blow it up too much, boom, blows up in your face. And it doesn't matter even if you think it's gonna happen, and when it happens, it triggers that event. Sometimes it smells of, and everybody's different. I was a hunter, so shooting guns was something that I did before I was shot. And going back to shooting guns, still, it was part of my desensitization. I had to do it. Go to the range and fire a gun. But the smell of gun smoke, you're fighting now. You are fighting, going through flashbacks and anxiety attacks while you're doing this, because it's something I felt I had to do. Because it was a challenge for me too. I needed to know that I could do it. Because again, we're fighting. We have to win. And if we just give up and we just say, I'll never do that again, then I lose. So smells, hospital smells, bring you back to that place where, you hear the truck backing up. Doop, doop, doop. That's the hospital sound of the machine beeping in my head. And that just went on for months. That just brings back flashbacks. When it's bad, I've taken a lot of chances. I have self-medicated. I have drank way too much alcohol, and some of those days I was driving, and it was bad. I was at times so angry at people. I remember a day a guy cut me off on the highway, and then we got off the same exit, and he opened his window to yell at me. I opened my window and I said, "You should shut your window right now, or this will be the last breath you ever take on this planet, and I'll end you." And self-destructive behavior, bad stuff. I used to take chances with my life, and it's not helping anybody.
What was your reaction to what you had said to him on that exit?
Well, that was a time in my life when there was a lot of anger, and that felt like I was, you can't hurt me, I'm just going to end you. Right. So that was a time when before I had forgiven the olive-skinned man, and I felt great. Now, when things like that happen, we've lost. I used to have the ability to handle anything, handle any stress. I was vice president with a bank, and I sold $1 million a year in services, and I could handle anything. I could come home and deal with anything, handle people, handle phone calls, and now those situations happen. You get a angry guy on the phone or something like that. I just can't get it. I just have anxiety attacks. I'll just fall on the floor. I never thought about committing suicide. Okay. And this is another huge problem. Because I have hope. Because I know that there's a God, and I know that there's something more than this. And I know that my life doesn't belong to me. Okay? My life belongs to you and to everybody who may be listening to this. My life belongs to God, and it's all about what He can do through me. And I've been sent to places where I saved people from committing suicide. I didn't know why I was going there, but when I got there, I realized, and then they realized why I was there, to save them from hurting themselves. But it wasn't too long ago, Bruce. It was one night, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I didn't want to kill myself, but I wished that it was over. I just wished, and I prayed to God that He would just take me. Just take me. Just let me die. And the guilt is the other thing. I was the manager of the bank. I was in charge of everybody in the bank. So after this guy shoots me, all right, I get it. You're angry, you wanted money, he shot me. Then he turned around and he shot 2 of my coworkers before he left. He shot each of us twice. Why would he shoot these girls? Why? So now, for years, the guilt, because I was in charge and I couldn't protect them. In my book, I write about 2 kinds of guilt, the traumatic guilt and consequential guilt. The traumatic guilt of the whole experience, and then the consequential guilt of that as a consequence, these people who got hurt because of this accident that happened, this thing, it's not an accident, this was an intentional cruel act that happened, and you're responsible for it, that you should have done something. So I should have jumped over the desk, and I should have done this, or I should have done this differently. You go through days and weeks and years and decades of blaming yourself for the things that have happened to either yourself or to other people, because you should have been smarter, you should have been stronger, you should have been braver, you should have known, but you didn't. You did the best you could based on the experience that you had with the circumstances that were around you. And the minute that you understand that there's nothing that you could do and you're not to blame, and that you forgive yourself, will also change your life. You have to reinvent yourself. We're never going to be the same guy that I was before. I was the guy, I was in sales with a bank, and I was the man. Thousands of clients, 100 at a time, making millions of dollars for the bank, and I feel really horrible. I'm never going to be that guy again. I'd like to be that guy again, but I'm not. But the thing is, that's okay, because I'm a new guy. But you have to learn how to reinvent yourself. Right. There is a way through this. There's a process. And after 20 some odd years, I started to write, I started to put all this stuff down. I decided that I had to write this book. And because I learned a lot about healing, you know, and I wrote this book, and I was inspired by, well, my faith, really, to write this book and to help people who need help even more than I do right now, because there's a lot that needs to be learned. There's a lot that I still need to know, but there's a lot that people need to know. The simplest tool for me, I get up in the morning, usually my wife is already up, and, you know, big hug. That's my first tool in the morning. That physical contact, letting that love in, you know, it recharges my battery. It's just the simplest thing, but it's one of the most powerful daily tools that you could possibly use. Just that physical contact. The hug from my wife is, Maria, is just, it's, you know, it's, you gotta let that love in, because you gotta get rid of that. What we're talking about is such deep breathing that it actually brings relaxation to the body. So breathing really deeply in and then holding it, and then a huge exhale, using a diaphragm to push all that air out, and doing that a couple of times a day. It makes, and these are not just imaginary changes, these are physiological changes that happen with chemical events that change in your body. The smell you referred to, same thing. I used to do the little pack of pine needles from, you know, the redwood forest in California, like that, and those smells make chemical changes in your brain. And they bring back, those memories are imprinted. When you bring back those memories, same way you bring back a memory of a flashback, the way it devastates us, those good memories, which are imprinted through the adrenaline effect, also bring back, and they change, and they bring us to a different place. Change, you know, you change the way your brain is thinking. If you cannot put that image in yourself, do the smell, changes your image. These sounds, it actually changes the brain waves, and they will create physiological, chemical effects in your brain and your body that will create chemicals that will calm you down. And then, you know, of course, just sometimes music, singing. I'll sing to myself. My wife will be like, "Rob, you must be feeling better. You're singing." I'm like, "No, I'm singing because I don't feel better." And so there's also another tool called guided imagery. And guided imagery is an amazing, amazing thing. It's a tool to help change where your brain is, change how you are, change how you're thinking. You're talking about, you know, closing your eyes, you're at a place, maybe you're at the beach and the sun is shining on your face and you can hear the waves. Can you hear the waves? And you hear the waves washing. Can you hear the water washing? And you're going through this whole guided imagery where you're walking down to the beach and you feel this, the sand in your toes and the sun on your face, and all of a sudden you're there. It's like a good flashback. It's all about your faith, because I would be dead right now if I didn't have my faith in God. I'd be dead. My faith in God, and I didn't have the angel that He sent me, my wife. Those two things, I would certainly be dead from all this stuff now and be over. You got to know how to do this. And it's not easy. One of the most difficult things to do, especially when all this is ingrained about planning for the 1-year plan, the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, just thinking about tomorrow, never being where you are. I know it's this cliche, but it's not. Living in the moment, enjoying what's in front of you. My wife, Maria, taught me that. She's like, "Rob, what are you talking about next week, next month, next year? I'm right here in front of you." You know, so that hug in the morning or in the afternoon or whenever I can get that hug, it grounds me and it brings me to the present. There's nothing that exists except me and my wife and that hug. And these are tools. And there's hundreds more like it, but we need to practice this kind of stuff that teaches us to live in the moment. So coping strategies. You know, I've always been, even before I was shot, I was always the health guy. I always worked out. I used to do taekwondo, so martial arts, and later in life I learned things like yoga, and always went to the gym. So I've always been that guy, and I've always found that those tools are very helpful coping mechanisms when you're feeling anxiety or depression. I also have huge amounts of physical pain, even more now than I have ever had. I have tons of surgeries in my front and my back, and so tons of scar tissue. And going to the gym, you break that scar tissue up, and that scar tissue around those muscles is very painful, and they impinge nerves, and the pain runs down your arm and your back, up your head. So exercise, still helps. And even if it hurts, I still do it, because exercise, it creates feel-good hormones, okay? Those feel-good hormones that you need. It's like an antidepressant.
Right.
So it's not like an antidepressant, it is an antidepressant. It's exactly what that is. So even when you're not feeling well, I'll exercise. So health, there's the mind, the body. We've got to take care of ourselves. There's so many foods that you can have on a daily basis. This is a lifestyle. First, you have to eliminate the things that are bad for us. The things that promote stress, anxiety, the bad nutrition, fried foods, high glycemic index foods. I lost my kidney, my spleen, and part of my pancreas. As a result, am immunocompromised, so I get sick easier, I get bronchitis easier, I may get pneumonia easy, and I'm also now a diabetic because of it all. So I have to eat like a champ because I have kids, I want to live. And if I don't, I'm going to die. So I had to learn I learned a lot about the glycemic index. So when you're eating refined sugars like, sugar, cake, cookies, donuts, all this simple stuff with a lot of sugar in it, it's horrible for you, and it's horrible for your stress and your anxiety level. You may not know it, but it is. And then your body feeds off it, you want more of it, and you just get more anxious. If you can deal with gluten, whole grains, whole grain pasta is real, whole grain bread, that stuff is really good for you. It's high in magnesium. Magnesium is one of those elements that calms us down. Magnesium is one of those elements that acts as a natural muscle relaxer. Taking magnesium, you need to take calcium and magnesium together in a 3-to-1 ratio, because you need one to have the other one absorbed. When you take it in whole foods like a grain, all that stuff is in there already. So I prefer the whole foods part of it. I do a lot of juicing of vegetables, seaweed, stuff like that is really, really good. B vitamins through food or through supplements, and they calm the nervous system as well. Things like fish oil, omega-3 fatty acids will calm the nervous system. 2012, my doctor, my psychiatrist, asked me to come to his office, and he said, "Rob, come in Friday." It wasn't my scheduled appointment, and he said, "I'd like you to come in, and I'd like you to talk to me and a group of other psychiatrists." And I'm like, "Great! So all you guys are gonna heal me, right? In a day? That's wonderful." He's like, "No, we were hoping that you could teach us." And I'm like, here I am, the guy at home who's having all this nightmares and depression and flashbacks and anxiety, and you want me to do what?
Yeah.
Right? And so, look, I'll bite, all right, I'll bite on the hook, and I'll come in, I'll do that, see what. So I figured, what am I going to teach these guys? They've been doing it for 40 years each, so, a couple hundred years of experience in the room. So there I am starting, he's asking me questions like you are, and we're doing this interview, and what is a flashback to you? And so a flashback to me is, people don't realize. People just think it's like this thing in your head where you have this image, like a nightmare, but it's in your head, and you're just imagining this thing in your head like a vision. It's no vision. There's Bruce, there's Rob, and there's the olive-skinned man, the guy who shot me and got away and shot my 2 friends and got away with it and was never seen again. And he's in the room, he looks just like we do, his physical form, and he's right there. And the gun is exploding in my head, and I am jumping under the table and I'm screaming like a little baby. Okay, and you could see the gunshot, you could smell the smoke, and I'm sitting under there, and everybody's wondering what happened just now.
What's going on?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Not in your head. It's right there. For a vet, you're back in the battlefield. You're in the LZ, and there's rounds flying over your head. There's rounds flying at me too. For somebody with domestic abuse, it's their attacker, whoever that was. And it could have been one time, and it could have been protracted, of course. So, and that's the other thing about trauma. So there are these, one-time traumas, and then there's this complex traumas that have happened protracted over a period of time in many different events, and this is even more difficult. Yeah, there are 100 things that we need to do: health, diet, exercise, meditation, prayer. There's just 100 things you need to do every day, and all of that combined, it's a lifestyle, and you have to change the way you live, and you have to rethink yourself and reinvent yourself, and you have to fight when you don't want to fight. I know, one of these things is, do I ever feel emotionally numb?
Yes.
I wish I feel emotionally numb. I wish I did. I wish I felt emotionally numb. I don't.
Not a symptom for you.
I don't feel numb. I wish I did. Then at least I wouldn't feel anything.
Well, it's a different perspective for everybody, because PTSD strikes each person differently.
Absolutely.
So when that happens, you speak of, I wish I could, and other people, that's their safe place. They go emotionally numb because they have their anger jacket on, if you will. And that's where, nope, you're not getting to me. It's my safe place. Circle of man. Yeah.
Exactly.
Everybody's alone.
Right. And there's all these different stages that you're at. Until you get rid of that bubble, that bulletproof vest, that's a stage.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and my shooting was 25 years ago, last month. And people think that time heals all the wounds. Bullshit. Time does not heal these wounds. People say, why don't you just forget about it? Rob, why don't you just forget about it? Bruce, right? I'm sure you've heard that. It's been a long time ago. You're not in danger anymore. And when you wake up from nightmares that you've had all night long, and you've been killed over and over and over, you feel like you're in danger.
Every day.
Because there's a lot we all need to learn about what's going on up here. I'll get an email or a phone call from somebody. Go on my website. They'll call me up. People are like, Rob, come and please help me. And I'll go and I'll help them, or I'll talk. And you did. I sent this stuff out about nightmares and all of this stuff, and I got a phone call from you. And it's all part of the process. And you have to talk about it. Talking about it, writing about it, speaking about it is helpful. And I couldn't do this 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I just wanted to die. 9 years ago, I wanted to die. 2 years ago, I wanted to die. Some days, some moments, I still want to die. But I don't. I choose to live. One day after I got out of the hospital and I started recovering, so in the early 90s, one of the bullets I was shot with was still in my back, and it started to bother me. So I went to a surgeon and I had him take it out. I was awake. It was just, ambulatory, just gave me a local in my back, and he says, Rob, I'm really excited. Now, he was the chief of general surgery at North Shore Hospital. He goes, I'm really excited because I've never taken a bullet out before. This is my first bullet. I'm so excited. I'm taking out this bullet. And it's not like you're going to die from it. This is a cool thing for me. So he comes around and he takes the bullet in the forceps and he goes, always wanted to do this. And he drops the bullet in the little metal tin, ding, shh. And he goes, always wanted to do that. And he takes the bullet out, cleans it off, he puts it in my hand, he goes, this bullet is very special to you. Don't let anybody take this bullet from you. Anyway, I took that bullet and I brought it to my jeweler and I had him put it on this chain. And I hang it around my neck as a symbol of hope. This is the bullet that God sent to me that saved my life. The day I died was the worst day of my life. Those 77 days, worst day. But that day was also the very best day of my life. Same day. Worst day and best day. I came back into my body. I came back to life. EMS is bringing me back to life. They're like, it's a miracle. I'm like, yeah, it is. It was a miracle, but not the kind that you may be thinking of. And they put me in the ambulance that day, and it was November. It was really cold out, and they went to start the ambulance. He was like, go, 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 go. And the light above my head went to black, and the ignition went click, 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 and the battery was dead. But I felt great. I just died, right? I felt great because I'm going to live. All I knew was Angel told me, I'm going to live today. Mary said, you're going to live. So I'm like, bring it on. You know, I said to the guy, this is going to ruin my whole day, that the battery died. He was like, you're not even allowed to laugh. What is wrong with you? Do you know what happened to you? I was like, yeah, dude. Yeah, that's my bullet story. And it's about hope, and it's about faith. And you guys have to fight, and you're not alone. Writing down the events that have happened to you is a cathartic experience in and of itself. It releases the emotion out of your body. It does. It releases it. And I was inspired the day that I was in that meeting with those doctors. And these doctors were writing, they were, ooh, ah, I didn't know that was a flashback. Like, well, how did you not know? Well, we only read it in books written by another doctor who read it in books. So these were the first 12 guys that I ever met who actually looked to the line people to learn from the people that they were actually treating, to learn what this was all about. So then they were like, well, we want you to treat the residents at North Shore, and we want to tape record the next session so that we can use it as training tools. And so that's what I was inspired, how I was inspired to then say, I need to write a book to help survivors of trauma. And I sat down in September of 2012, and it took me 2 years to write and to figure out how to edit and to publish. And this is my testament, right, to the power of God, the power of faith, and a lot of what I've learned about healing from trauma. Because the journey is the place where we learn everything we need to get all those tools, and this interview is part of my journey. You listening to this interview, maybe it's part of your journey. My journey, I had to write it down. Writing your stuff, like I was saying, sometimes you want to write your stuff, write it down, take it outside, and burn it. Burn it in the wind, let it go. Some people tied to balloons, let it fly away. Me, I had to write it down. Stories about forgiveness, how that happens. Stories about how I get rid of anger, how I get rid of guilt. You know, still have that stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know, still have that stuff. And it's like, damn it, there it is. Damn it, there it is, you know. So it's a daily event. And the minute I started writing this book, hardest thing I ever had to do. Horrible, reliving. Some of it was happy, great reliving. My wife, the experiences we had, she taught me how to live one day at a time. The name of this book is called From Anger to Enlightenment, a survivor story of faith, by me, Robert Palaszczuk. This book is important not because it's about me, because it's not about me. It is about healing from trauma, and it is a tool. It was a tool for me to write it, and now it is a tool for people who are reading it. I wrote this book also for the families of people, for the families of veterans, for the families of people who are survivors of child abuse, of domestic violence, of acts of terror like 9/11, shooting violence, stabbing violence. It doesn't matter for these families because the trauma may be different in the event, but it is all the same in the way it affects us, in our mind, in our bodies. And of course there's the physical pain from the injuries as well. But I wrote this also for the families so that they could learn how to deal with their spouses or children or parents who have these symptoms, what they are, how real they are. And just talk about, there are no coincidences and fate, right? Again, you may believe it, you may not, but fate is real. So I wrote this book and then I had to come up with a title, and I'm sitting in Huntington having lunch with my friend Ron, having dinner with my friend Ron, and we're talking about the book and talking about, a title. And we're talking and it came to me, From Anger to Enlightenment, because that's the story of my journey, from anger to enlightenment. And then one day, weeks later, I'm sitting there looking at the title, I had to look at the title, and it had never dawned on me. It didn't dawn on me until I look at it, and it's staring me right in the face, right? And it's an acronym for the word fate. And I'm like, there is no possibility that that is an accident. That was always the title of the book that I was supposed to write, to bring faith and hope and healing into the lives of people who need it even more than I do. So there are going to be people in your life, it's all about, for us, the people, the places, and the things that trigger us and make us worse or bring us to a place that we don't want to be. And some of these people may be your family members. And I try to teach people that when you eliminate something or you quit from a situation, quitting has a bad rap because it makes you feel like you lost. But quitting isn't losing. Quitting is helping you. Quitting is winning. When quitting or eliminating or detracting yourself from a person, a place, or a thing that hurts you, I have had to cut off people close to me in my own family because they are angry, the glass is not even half full, and there's always going to be a disaster, or there's just a lot of anxiety from that person and a lot of anger from that person. And when people are like that, I cannot have people in my life sucking the life out of me, which I need just to survive, who are angry. And if you have to cut those people off, you're not being a bad person. You're helping yourself. You need to help yourself. You cannot help anybody else unless you help yourself. You can't love anybody else unless you love yourself. Loving yourself is not bad. That's not being selfish. Selfishness also has gotten a bad rap. You need to be selfish. You need to have love for yourself. You need to know who you are. If you don't know who you are, you'll never know who anybody else is. You need to be strong because you can't be strong for your family, your kids, or your wife if you're not strong yourself. So, and cutting people off, even if they are your family, sometimes is the better thing for you to do. You're in a battle, and these are tools. Ladies, gentlemen, kids, there is hope. There is hope. The minute that you think there's no hope is the minute that you lost your battle. I hope that it helps. I know that it will. Thank you all survivors. We are brothers and we are sisters, and we're here to help each other. God bless you all. Thank you very much.